Alright, Daima Episode 8, Things You Missed. Because of the RPG parallels, I have to point out how Tamagami number 3 addresses Goku like a video game boss. Do you seek the Dragon Ball? Like, that's the translation that I got in English. Goku running up the Tamagami's arm is similar to what he did in movie 4 against Slug, if y'all remember that movie. When Goku and Tamagami number 3 charged at one another, it reminded me of Goku and Super number 17 charging at one another in Dragon Ball GT. According to the Kaioshin, Goku has already acclimated himself to the thick air of the demon realm, which makes him a better fighter. Goku and the Tamagami have quite a lengthy, tense face-off, standoff, or stare-down, whatever you want to call it, similar to the days of old in Dragon Ball, Z, and GT. And the action commences once the hammer falls out of place, just like how Goku and Vegeta's first fight started. Both of these elements are things taken from westerns, spaghetti westerns from way back in the day that Dragon Ball Z and GT mimic, all the way in the series. Tamagami 3 can apparently shoot ki blasts, or just blasts, and these blasts seemingly track Goku as he flies away. They look similar to the ones that Cell did against Goku in their fight, and in the Dragon Ball Kai television opening intro. The two of them have an orgasmic looking ki clash like the one Goku and Vegeta had, or the one Gohan and Cell had, or even the one Goku and Jackie Chun had. But this may just be the first time the Kamehameha has failed in a ki clash. Then again, was Tamagami number 3 actually using ki? Because he doesn't seem to be organic. But anyway, the Kamehameha fails and Goku elbows him right in the belly, just like he did to Recoome back on Namek. Also, a cool little touch is that Naotoshi Shida stepped up big time in this scene, which makes this scene look super awesome. You can tell that he's the animator. Typically, if the neck is stretching violently, or if there's a lot of quick movements and rotations with the camera, stuff like that, all that action going on, you can tell if it's Shida. It's really easy to pick up on him. It's hard to see, but Goku definitely hits SS2 right before firing the Kamehameha, and he remains in that state until Tamagami number 3 concedes the fight. Speaking of which, the Tamagami does concede the ball like the evil dragons would in Dragon Ball GT. But just like with the 5-star and 7-star dragon in GT, there's a catch. Goku needs to correctly answer which cup the ball is hidden within. Goku having to guess which cup the ball is hidden under is very video game-like, but of course it was a trick and Goku got the ball anyway. There's a potential hint to the Saiyans or Saiyans in the dub. Well, you know what? It's Saiyans. I'm gonna keep it with that. Actually being from the demon realm. There's a hint that they're actually, from the demon realm. Pansy tells Goku that because he was able to transform and shoot light from his hands, he used magic. This could mean that the whole Saiyan race, yeah, that's right, the whole Saiyan race originated from the demon realm. They do have pointy ears when they're in their Grade 8 forms or Ozaru forms, and I believe the GT Perfect files state that they were originally began in those big giant 8 forms and evolved into the humanoid versions that you see Goku and Vegeta. So they could actually be from the demon realm. I wouldn't be surprised with the amount of retcons that this show has been having so far, especially with the one to come in this video. Stay tuned for that. Because Goku defeated the Tamagami, Glorio knows that rumors of a spiky-haired boy with a red stick will spread like wildfire, just like rumors of the Golden Warrior and the Great Saiyaman. While watching Buark home video, the guest spots Arinsu on Earth after Vegeta had sacrificed himself versus Buu, and it appears she already knew about Majin Buu at that point. Goma says it was probably Dabra, otherwise known as Deborah in the dub, who told her this. Dr. Arinsu walks into a room to ask a new character named Marba about how things are going on with their concoction, which they're using a fragment of Majin Buu to create, the same fragment that Dr. Arinsu went to the battlefield to get from Majin Buu. Or, I guess, the fragments that he left. Apparently, they've been creating Majins, but the previous incarnations were defective, kind of like the androids that Dr. Gero created prior to 13, 14, well, y'all know, 16, 17, were they kind of all defective? I mean, they all had obedience issues, and number 16 was said by Dr. Gero to be defective in itself, so I guess not, well, other than Cell. So yeah, until Cell. Dr. Arinsu tells Marba that she believes she was the one who created Buu, but Marba says it was the wizard Bibidi which is interesting because this is what was said in the original manga. But in the 2014 Saikyo Jump 12 Boo Mysteries interview, years later, Toriyama stated that Boo had existed since time immemorial. But then Arinsu says that's not true because she states Bibidi didn't have the power, the ability that Marba had to create Majin Buu. And even more so that it was Boo who spun the demon realm into chaos. But that would make everything that I just stated to be a double retcon. Arinsu implies that because of Majin Buu throwing the demon realm into chaos, this is the reason some of the Kaioshin left, but even then, they were still murdered by Buu. But Arinsu says she won't tell anyone that Marba made Buu, presumably because everyone in the demon realm would be after her head, because she created Buu who caused the chaos in the demon realm, obviously. Marba sports the M symbol on her clothes, hinting at a possible connection to Majin Buu and Bibidi and Babidi, but Arinsu makes it clear that this woman created Buu. So does that mean Marba had a hand in creating Bibidi and or Babidi? Or is that M script signifying of something else? Arinsu said herself that she was incapable of creating Majin. Maybe Marba had a spell on Bibidi, kind of like Babidi had on Dabra, which is why they had the M script. Same thing with Vegeta, right? Maybe they have a connection to each other. Marba has Dr. Arinsu drop saliva in the pot to spread info to the creation without ever actually having to speak to it, which makes them easier to control. And little shadowy Boos appear from the smoke, from the fat one to the skinny gray one to the lean pink one and to the childlike one. And yeah, that image right there speaks for itself. And yes, like I mentioned last week, because I'm sure you all knew as well, Dr. Arinsu plans on becoming Supreme King of the Demon Realm and is using Goku to get the Dragon Balls if her initial plan fails. Or I mentioned this 2 weeks ago when Glorio and Goku had fought. But everyone pretty much knew this, especially if you knew if the leaks were coming out. Hybeast is told by King Kadan to spend the night at a hotel with Vegeta and co. and wants mud-colored wine, which, of course, tastes like mud. And he'll use the money that King Kadan gave him to buy it. Vegeta demands Hybeast to tell him more about the Dragon Balls of the Demon Realm, but Hybeast tells him, "You're not even a king, but you act so arrogant." Which is funny considering Vegeta's a prince, actual royalty, who should probably be considered a king at this point. But the whole scene was hilarious, even Bulma was laughing. Here are things you missed from Dragon Ball Daima episode 9. Pansy has an idea of making Goku wear a bear hat, but the ears are still round, so won't people still be after him? Pansy lends Goku some of her clothes, which marks the 5th time in Dragon Ball history that Goku has cross-dressed. He wore a dress in Oolong's village, lingerie with Kame Sennin and Kuririn with lunch, that's whole situation, and then he wore Snow's clothes from Jingle Village in the Red Ribbon Army arc, and he also wore a dress in episode 7 of Dragon Ball GT, which is an episode centered around a bride being stolen by Tsunama. Kind of like the Dragon Balls being stolen in this episode, or even the ship that was stolen from Bulma and Vegeta later on, and Piccolo, and Hybeast. Also, Goku going after the perps in girls' clothes is similar to the same thing he did in Jingle Village when he just left Snow's house with her clothes on. Double also. This isn't the first time Dragon Balls have been stolen in Dragon Ball. Remember Namek when Frieza had his ball stolen? Or better yet, the first arc of Dragon Ball when the Dragon Balls were stolen from the gang. This Wolfman is a bit like Bergamo from Super. Pansy's tracker looks like a dragon radar, which is what I thought it could have been from the episode in which it was introduced in. The werewolf is also reminiscent to Manwolf, who would transform into a man at the sight of a full moon, or even Zarbon, who had the whole Beauty and Beast thing going, right? Like 2 halves of him. While the 2 thieves are talking about the Dragon Ball they stole, Goku just nonchalantly tells them it's worthless without all 3. And it's literally just the same thing he did to Goku Jr. in GT in the GT special when he walked up to him and said, "The 4-star Dragon Ball isn't going to cut it. You need all 7 for it to work." Bulma and the others get their plane stolen in a similar way to Goku and the others from episode 3. And it's almost the same way. They beat up a few guys, they steal their plane, and it's almost in a similar looking place. It may even just be the same place as well. I didn't spot this until this episode, but Goku in the eye catch poses the exact same way as Toribot. Did you ever notice that? The scene of Vegeta manhandling those 80s cyber demons kinda looks like the Terminator in his first few scenes from both T1 and T2. The colors in this Tech Noir Club look a lot like the ones from DBZ episode 289. Apparently, there's something called the zombie game, where you have to eliminate zombies in the forest to win, but if you're bitten and converted into a zombie, then you're disqualified. Thank you, Hybis. The eye thing on Hybis' belt is something he found in the mountains long ago. It was just a living eye, and he put it on his belt. What a weirdo. Degas is quietly talking on the phone, much like Gloria was a few episodes ago, and he finds out about Goku and company getting to the third demon world and even collecting the Dragon Ball and defeating the Tamagami, Bulma, Vegeta, Piccolo, and Hybis meeting up with Goku, Pansy, Shin, and Glorio is the inverse of GT episode 28, where it was Goku, Pan, and Trunks, and Giru returning to Earth, right? Now they're meeting in the demon realm. It's like if Pan, Vegeta, Bra, and Goten went to planet M2 or something, Pansy immediately recognized that Piccolo was a Namekian, but admittedly hadn't seen one before. She refers to him as Namekujin rather than Namekusejin, which denotes that she doesn't know of planet Namek, or she's just assuming he's like a Namekian person rather than a person of the planet Namek, right? Because Se in Japanese means planet. So when you say Namekusejin, you're saying person of planet Namek. But if you say Namekujin, you're just saying a Namekian person, like an African, you know what I'm saying? It's not like African from Earth or something. That's probably Namekusejin. Something like that. The thing is, she understands that he is an Namekian because he's ultimately still part of the much broader demon realm. That's the point they're trying to convey with this dialogue. It's a whole bunch of stuff that, gets lost in translation. Piccolo brings up a very important plot point that exposes why Kibito didn't come. The dude can freaking teleport. When Piccolo said this, I had this huge, kind of moment. And then I thought to myself, like, well, obviously. But, they probably could have wrote around that and said that it depowered him as well. But makes sense. One of the dudes who came back for revenge against Vegeta, the first one in particular, sounded a lot like Goma when he screamed. When Marba pulls out a jar of Saibai-Man seeds, I was about to write down she pulled out a jar of what looked like Saibai-Man seed, until she just straight up said it's Saibai-Man seeds. And yes, that's the correct way to pronounce it. And this is huge. This is really huge because it could validate my point from last week. Just give it a listen. Pansy tells Goku that because he was able to transform and shoot light from his hands, he used magic. This could mean that the whole Saiyan race, yeah, that's right, the whole Saiyan race originated from the demon realm. They do have pointy ears when they're in their grade 8 forms or Ozaru forms. The GT Perfect files state that they were originally began in those big giant 8 forms and evolved into the humanoid versions that you see Goku and Vegeta. So it makes sense to believe that maybe they started out like that in the demon realm and then escaped the demon realm and then evolved into the humanoid forms that you see Goku and Vegeta in. Saibai-Man in Japanese could translate to cultivar or cultivators in English, which is related to the Saiyan naming scheme for vegetables, right? Because they all grow underneath the ground. They're dropping huge hints here, guys. However, she does say that she could sell them to outsiders, which does imply that the Saiyans, otherwise known as the Saiyans in the dub, are still considered outsiders, so not related or inside of the demon realm. Plus, you got to remember the demon name puns in general are, plant-based, almost like the Saiyans. So, they might not be from the demon realm. But if they are, then I called it last week. Marba also mentions that the seed increases Majin Buu's essence, making it incapable of being controlled by the two of them. That being her and Dr. Arinzu. And you could also assume anyone else, for that matter. Also, have the two of them been at the cauldron overnight or periodically come in and out? Because Goku and the others got a whole full night's worth of sleep in that time span. Or maybe time just works differently in the first demon world versus the third. Arinsu and Marba use the Saibai Man as a base, various other monsters, and Majin Buu's essence to create this thing called Majin Ku. This sounds like Cell, but on steroids. His first task is to defeat Tamagami number 1, so look forward to that in the next episode. Dragon Ball Daima Episode 10 Easter Eggs. This one is quite freaking heavy. Alright, let's start. The pin number for Goku's group was 1022, which is a gendarmerie pin number, obviously. Also, Kaioshin makes Goku's ears pointy, but he wasn't capable of doing that around anyone else. It probably wouldn't matter, I guess, since he was a wanted fugitive anyway. Piccolo says that Dende being a baby means the Dragon Balls will be useless, but how does this make sense? Maybe it's because Dende used his magic to change them as a young child rather than as a baby. Or maybe it's because the Dragon Balls are inert after what Goma had used them and stuff. It appears Vegeta's already getting used to the thick air of the Demon Realm as he casually floats around in the ship when Hybius was spitting game at Bulma. Maybe the inside of the ship can somehow resist the thick air, or all the training on the temple did all that for him. Hybius and Piccolo bring Vegeta's perverted nature to reality when he points out how Vegeta loves big boobs. Something many people have thought about since he knocked up Bulma way back in the day. Because of the Majin Buu parallels, I have to point out how the fight with Majin Ku and Tamagami 1 is structured similarly to Gohan vs. Dabra, where the fight is far from the main focus of the current plot. In the Buu arc, it was the tournament taking up screen time, and here it's Vegeta's desire for huge boobs. The second Demon World looks a lot like Namek, or the Kaioshin world, with all its moons and green skies. Makes sense because both beings inhabit this world. And unlike the third Demon Realm, the air isn't heavy, so they can fly the ship as fast as they want to without worrying about damage. Krakens are giant sea monsters that will swallow you whole if you fly really low. There's more information on them about how, and so as legend has it, they say they're so big, they're like moving islands. They got massive claws and all this other stuff. Goku tearing these planes up with the Nyoibo is right out of early Dragon Ball. Anytime the Red Ribbon Army aircraft was in the sky with Goku around, it was a death sentence. Remember when Goku squeezed his face on the plane in DBS Broly, or even with Baby in GT? Well, boom, here's Daima's version. I want to point out how Goma watching his plans explode in his face reminds me of Commander Red and Degetsu as Black, like kind of in those roles, or even like Frieza on Namek when his men like all died and then he brought in the reinforcements and then they all died. Goku and Pansy ends up in the Kraken's mouth. Okay, time for the count. Goku has been inside Bouillon, Goku has been inside Piccolo's mouth, Majin Buu, the giant from planet Monmouth in GT, the dinosaur from the Stretch Planet in GT, and his most recent offense was with this Kraken in Daima. Even the Dragon Ball almost got lost in that monster. This is the third time a Dragon Ball has been inside of a creature's mouth. The other two times were from examples in GT that I just mentioned. This is the original home planet of the Namekians. The way Tamagami number 1 got into Majin Ku's face is real similar to how Majin Buu did to Gotenks, how the tables have changed and turned. And even the fight, now that I mention it, is structured a lot like that fight, where he was just kind of toying with Gotenks the whole time. It's kind of funny, I just now noticed this as I was recording. Or when he outspeeds him, like another thing I noticed was when he outspeeds him, it's like Goku and Frieza on Namek when Goku starts outspeeding him, or in GT with the 4-star dragon when the 4-star dragon starts outspeeding Goku. Kaioshin points out how the Namekians could have taken trees from this world to rebuild them on Namek, the one that Frieza blew up. So he must be referring to the new Namek, and if so, how the hell did they regrow the same Ajisa crops? They maybe just took the seeds. Who knows? Or, I mean, they do have magic, so then there's that. Before Goku ate the revive bug, he asked if they could fill up your belly. If you remember, also, I mentioned this in an earlier video a few episodes ago, but that was an ability that the Senzu had, and the evidence is right there on the screen. And with this, there's now like 5 ways to heal people in Dragon Ball. The Senzu, Buu's magic, Dende's magic, Kibito's magic, and now the revive bugs, which tastes freaking gross. Piccolo mentioned that his father was the one who lived in the Demon Realm, which on the surface seems to be alluding to Piccolo Daima, Great Demon King Piccolo, right? But he came from Kami after he had already gone to Earth. Plus, Kami rejoined bodies with Piccolo in the Cell Arc, so was Piccolo referring to Katatsu, otherwise known as the father of the nameless Namekian, who would go on to later become Kami and split himself into two, with the other half becoming Piccolo? That's the only way any of this would make sense, that it's Katatsu, right? The nameless Namekian's father. Bulma refers to Goku as Kakaroto or Kakarot for the first time in this episode. Man, Vegeta really rubbed off on her. I should probably rephrase that. Majin Buu loses the fight and runs to Arinsu, and they take off. If he pulled this crap with Vegeta, well, he'd be dead. Arinsu is disappointed in Majin Buu and fires him, but no worries, he's a good singer and pretty fast and good for shopping. So in other words, he's a pussy. The Namekians of the Demon Realm were treated like slaves, so they left the Demon Realm to be slaughtered by space terrorists. Kaioshin drops his backstory and it goes like this. The good Supreme Demon King of his time sought to expand the Demon Realm. He ordered the powerful Super Majin Raimus, as they said, to create the universe. Raimus's name pun, which I got from Herms, is apparently an anagram of the Dragon Quest monster known as Slime, right? Which is in Japanese pronounced Suraimu. So when you mix up the words, you get Raimusu, right? And I mean, he resembles Zeno, but also resembles these slimes as well. Herms also states that it could come from the fruit lime, so you got that as well, which are still the highest authority in the universe. What does this mean for Zeno? Who knows at this point? Various universes were created, and Majins began moving to these universes that were created. And Raimus selected a few of the Gleans to be Kaioshin to monitor these universes. Then he freaking debunks the theory that I had of science being from the Demon Realm by saying that they and the Earthlings were born after the universe was created. Yikes, I posted that video a week ago and I'm just gonna keep it up. Many Glean's ancestors moved to the planets near Raimus. The warps were used freely to travel between realms. Abra Dabra's father feared the threat of beings from the outside, kind of like Frieza fearing, the threat of science, so he limited the use of the warps. Many of the Gleans revolted against this and escaped. Shin, however, was still in the Demon Realm, but only after he was chosen as a Kaioshin was when he left. All the Glean trees died, which led to the Glean's emigration from the Demon Realm, which makes them an endangered species. That whole dump of his backstory was the biggest part, if not one of the biggest parts of this video. But that's all for episode 10 Easter eggs.